Spoiler, I've got a coding task here. I add the label ready for agent, and an AI picks it up and does that task for me. Pretty cool. We've seen a lot from the community on how they use VIA, and it's been interesting, to say the least. People using it for different things in different ways, and I thought it might be cool to show you how we use VIA to build VIA from a software developer's perspective, I guess. And as a product in general, we're looping between shipping fast, getting feedback, and then tidying up, polishing, refining. And the reality is, I'm the bottleneck in that. And as we grow, as our user base grows, the demands go up, the features we need to build increase, the level of quality we need to deliver increases. And I can't be the bottleneck forever. Also, we're a scrappy startup. We don't have the money for a big team. And we can't ignore the value that AI brings in all of its aspects, but definitely for coding, especially when we're in this ship fast, get feedback, refine type of loop. But for me, working in things like Claude Code, one by one, on complex tasks, it's just too slow. I break that out into maybe 4 separate chats because I'm working on 4 things at once. And one agent edits a file, the other sees it as, oh, I didn't mean to edit that file, and thinks it's done something wrong, undoes it, and these agents start fighting with each other, which just results in no useful work being done. Obviously, for the developers out there, Git work trees solve this problem, but it gives me a load more admin work to do with local branches as well as cloud branches and just Git overhead. And with all of that, I don't think I was saving that much time compared to just coding stuff manually. So I went out and explored, looked for inspiration, and found some. I'd mentioned Matt Pocock, and his AI skills are really cool. OpenAI's Symphony spec also pulled a lot from there. And all of that led to me building something that very unoriginally called the VIA Coding Orchestrator. And this is a tool that basically takes all of that admin, the problem of competing chats, the admin of managing work trees, and building good quality code from AI, and wraps it in a neat little package that I can suddenly spend more time on the product vision, on how it should work, on what it should do, and less time on the nitty gritty little tiny points of code. So to see this in action, we might as well go through the flow. Let me open up an example here. So Claude, where are you? You're here in the background somewhere. There you are. So one of the skills that I mentioned was inspired by Matt Pocock. He has a skill called grilling, and I adapted that somewhat for my own purposes, more specific to our code base. And what this essentially does is, instead of the AI receiving a prompt and just running with it, it gets it to explore the code base pretty systematically and interview me relentlessly about what I want to do. The goal of this skill is that my understanding of what I want done and how I want it done is completely mirrored in the AI model. I don't have an opinion that the AI model doesn't have. It knows exactly how I want to do things. So one of the big requests in the Discord is that we build default categories. So I've added a prompt here. We want to implement the ability to set a default category. This will make that category auto-populated on the item creation slide-ins and on the Kanban task creation. We can still edit that, but the base state is the default category. A few more details, but pretty self-explanatory. And this skill has gone on and it's looked at the code base, It's instructed to look at specific files in the code base that I have handcrafted and learn my coding patterns, how I like things to be built, and then go and research the relevant domain, which is categories, a fully built function that already exists. It gets a full view of everything in the code base and then starts asking me relevant questions that prevents it doing something I don't want it to do if it just went straight to coding. For example, how should the default category preference be scoped? Because we've got workspaces in VIA, there could be 10 people in a workspace. If I set a default category, is that for me or is it for everybody? That was totally ambiguous in my first prompt, and something that it might have just made a judgment call if I didn't answer, or I'd have to go back reviewing the code and change it. So we go through these cycles until we have what we deem a shared understanding. So here I think we got 8 or 10 questions or so, and I use Claude Code purely for questions and answers right now, mostly through its UI. I could use it in the terminal too, but I just like the UI. And then once we have a clear understanding of what we want to do, I say, let's add this to VIA using another skill that just references the VIA API and tells it how to create tasks and issues in VIA. It also builds in a little bit of guidance to how it should create those issues or tasks. We call them tasks in VIA. And it doesn't build one massive task to implement defaults in categories, because something that all of us trip over is context window when it comes to AI coding. Anthropic and Opus is very generous. They've got a 1 million token context window, but you can fall into a trap of using too much of it, because once you get past 200 or 300k, it tends to get a bit dumb. And this has been improving and probably continues to improve, but I like to call this the smart window. The smart window happens under about 300k. You could argue lower even, but it gets better over time. New models are always getting better. And I don't want my coding agent to go into the dumb zone, which is up here, like 800 to a million tokens is just pretty rough. So I instructed to break these tasks down into small vertical slices that are clear boundaries, each of them individually testable, and we can build it in isolation and verify it in isolation. And then when all of these come together, the 4 individual parts work, so they all click together. Totally fine. So this has brought me to a state back in VIA that, let me switch back here. We have the 4 tasks it mentioned created, and these were created totally through Claude Code via the API. We have our titles, we have our dependencies, we have what to build, and our acceptance criteria of a checklist at the bottom. Now all I need to do is turn on my VIA Coding Orchestrator and let it work through these issues. So now we're here. I've moved all of these tasks into our to-do column. They're all marked ready for agent, but these all have dependencies on each other, so only one is actually free to work on right now. The rest are blocked by this first baseline issue. And if I switch over to my VIA Coding Orchestrator, it has picked up a task. And that is first task in the queue. And the first thing it is going to do once it boots up is move my task from to do into started. And it will locally on my laptop spin up Claude Code in the terminal, headless, and start building to the spec we defined inside of a very well written issue. So let's let that run for a minute and we can see how it works. There it is. It's moved to started. And if we click into our issue, we can see that it keeps us updated along the way with comments. So it's starting work. It's using my account from my API, so it does have my username. And we let it flow. The great thing about this is if we have tasks with no dependencies, like this update subtask display, this is a small little task that if we look here, we have tasks that are subtasks that are pretty long, and I don't really like scrolling through them. So I'd like them to be able to run on to multiple lines. It's basically what this little task here is for. But this doesn't have any dependencies. So if I move this into to do and I give it the ready for agent tag, the VIA coding orchestrator will also pick this up and run on it simultaneously. So we can start coding many things at once without them interfering with each other. Okay, well, we're back a little bit later. Got some tea. Too late at night. But anyway, we can see some things have changed. So my orchestrator, which is still working away on another task, now I see I have two tasks here. The ones that were being worked on are no longer ready for agent. They're marked ready for human and have been put back into the to-do pile because they're now for me to review. So I can click on these, I can see them, and something new has been added in here. We have comments about what the agent went and did, and also a related item of a pull request on GitHub. So let's have a look at our simple one, the update the subtask display, so we can see two lines at once. I can click in here to this related item, and that will bring me straight to a GitHub pull request that was already created for me. I can go in, I can review the code and see what it did. I can see that it changed the max lines to 2. It changed our alignment to start, which should keep those icons of the checkbox and the reorder handle up at the top, even if the text moves on to 2 lines, which is good to see. I see there's been some changes to padding here, which I didn't necessarily ask for. But now that I have a live branch, I get to just pull this down locally and run via here and see what it actually looks like. So here is the local branch with the changes. And if I add a subtask, okay, so one thing looks a bit out of line, which is the padding. I notice that this text is now no longer centered in line with these 2 buttons, but let's paste in some text and see if it works with multi-line. And it does. Okay, so at least the 2-line works well, but I need to tidy up that empty state where we just have 1 line. It doesn't look quite right to me. Bit offset. That's going to annoy me. So one of the things I can do is go back in here and leave a comment. So I've prepared a comment that says, this looks good. However, that alignment just isn't quite right. And I'm going to change this. This is no longer ready for human because I've done my review. And I'm going to say you need to rework this because I reviewed it and there's some changes to be made. So now the agent will again pick this up. It will read my comments. It will go readjust that padding and give me a new solution, which I can check again. And this is effectively the process I've been going through, except at a greatly parallelized scale. That's a hard word to say. And on any given day, as we have things to do, plans to make, features to build, and random feedback in the Discord, my list of started tasks can grow 6 to 7 at any one time, with AI agents building the features I want and me sitting here reviewing PRs, reviewing code, running the solutions locally, seeing what it did right, what it did wrong, testing them and shipping them. So as much as I love coding, I'm spending less time doing it and more time just deciding the direction of the product and overseeing my agents building it. So that's how VIA fits in. When this rework is done, it all goes well, I will change this to a merge option, which will go ahead and take care of all the GitHub merging. If there's any conflicts, it will resolve them. If it needs any feedback on those conflicts, it will let me know in comments and I can talk back and forth. So effectively, I use VIA to interact with my code base and do that day-to-day coding. Hope this was interesting. I know there's a few other people that have reached out. They've used the API to do interesting things, and we'd love to hear more. So keep the feedback coming. And I'm going to go to bed now. So good night.